Just this morning, I was reading a beautiful article in the New York Times by Justice Stephen Breyer about what judges of the Supreme Court do apart from disagreeing or agreeing with each other on the bench. In India, we tend to agree much more than the American Supreme Court. And the drift of the article is that despite the fact that judges express their views either in favor of what the other judge is saying or against the view so dispassionately and sometimes with a great deal of vigor, they are at heart very good friends. Justice Bobde narrated how we came to call each other lordship at a time when the vagaries and uncertainties of the appointment process were confounding us as to whether we would at all become judges of the High Court. We decided to call each other lordship, which we still do today. Justice Gavai to both Justice Bobde and me is HMJ. So even today in the Supreme Court when we meet in the coffee lounge, I welcome him because I normally arrive a little before he arrives. I always call him HMJ welcome. I've had a long association with both the bar and bench at Nagpur. I had the privilege of sitting here twice for over 3 months when I was still cutting my teeth as a young judge of the High Court. And I learnt a great deal from the bar. I spent very happy months here in the company of all of you who educated me in areas of law which I was not familiar with. But even before that, I was a beneficiary of members of the bar who made this cross-migration to Mumbai. Justice Bobde's distinguished father, Bhausaheb Bobde, and Justice Vasanti Naik's very distinguished father, Mr. B.R. Manohar. I can only tell you this, that one of the early cases which I appeared as a junior with Mr. Bhausaheb Bobde involved the withdrawal of the prosecution which was launched against the head of the Dawoodi Bohra community. And the test was, what is the test to be applied for the withdrawal of a prosecution of this nature? And I learned so much, not merely about the law, but about strategizing about the law from Bhausaheb in that case. Bhausaheb was flooded with work, far more work than he could handle, particularly after he became Advocate General. And ever so often I would get a call from him, and in his typical way he would say, Chandrachud, you go to Madgaon and argue this matter. And I would go to Madgaon and argue that matter because he couldn't do the matter. Speaking about B.R. Manohar, there was a case which was a very complex EXIM case, import and export case. Our senior, who was briefed in the High Court, names not to be taken, on every occasion that the case was listed, would say that I don't know anything about this case because it is so complex and please brief me all over again. The day before the final hearing was to start, we were told by the clerk of the senior that he is not going to accept the brief and he is returning the brief. The advocate on record was simply astounded because we had spent about 8 or 9 days in conference with the senior